Hey, folks, if you want to keep up with stories like this and never miss an update, make sure you follow S News and don't forget to support us by subscribing, hitting that like button and dropping a comment below. It really helps us out, you know. At exactly 4:14 local time on June 24th, 2025, a Russian Cerna-class landing craft carrying 30 soldiers was heading toward the western shore of Khersonen, completely unaware it had been tracked for the past 27 minutes by a Turkish-made drone circling at 18,000 feet. In exactly 90 seconds, what looked like just another routine combat mission was about to turn into one of the most critical turning points of the war. The Bayraktar TB2 drone had taken off from a hidden site near Mykolaiv at 2 o'clock, when the Black Sea was still completely dark and Russian radar operators were struggling to stay awake. This wasn't a broken-down commercial drone. It was Turkey's answer to the American Predator, an airborne surveillance platform capable of flying for 27 hours straight. Powered by a Rotax 912 engine, the same engine used in many small civilian aircraft, it cruised through the night at 70 knots. Why rush when you have all night to hunt, right? The drone's flight path into the target area was a masterclass in exploiting radar blind spots. Instead of flying directly in, it followed a route that kept it at least 50 kilometers away from known Russian S-300 missile sites. From hard-learned experience, the operators knew that even though the TB2 had a radar signature the size of a large bird, showing off near Russian air defenses was a quick way to turn a $5 million drone into scrap metal. By 3:30, the TB2 reached its patrol zone, a 40-kilometer by 20-kilometer rectangle of airspace positioned to monitor the key sea routes into Khersonen. At 18,000 feet, its Westcam MX-15D sensor ball could see everything. This Canadian-made electro-optical system wasn't just a camera, it was a multispectral imaging suite that could read a license plate from 20 kilometers away. In infrared mode, the cold Black Sea became a dark canvas where anything warm stood out like a flashlight in a coal mine. The drone operator, sitting in a ground control station that looked more like a gaming setup than a military command post, settled in for what could be hours of watching empty water. The TB2 flew its programmed pattern autonomously while the operator monitored the sensor feed, switching between optical and thermal views every few minutes to make sure nothing got missed. This is what drone warfare really looks like. 99% boredom, 1% pure adrenaline. But tonight that 1% was coming. At 3:47, something interesting popped up on the thermal display. A hotspot moving west at about 30 knots, leaving behind warm streaks glowing white against the cold Black Sea. The operator zoomed in. The shape soon became unmistakable. A Cerna-class landing craft from Project 11770. These 26-meter-long boats are the workhorses of Russian amphibious ops, fast, shallow-draft vessels that can carry 92 fully equipped troops or a main battle tank straight to shore. But what made this contact unique was it wasn't alone. The TB2's sensors picked up two more vessels following about 5 kilometers behind. The presence of a convoy meant this wasn't a routine patrol or supply run. The operator tagged the targets and started recording. Every pixel might matter later. The lead Cerna was moving fast. Its water-jet propulsion let it skim the calm sea like a speedboat. On thermal, the operator could make out heat signatures on deck, human body heat. He counted at least 20, maybe more, crammed inside. They weren't sailors. Their gear and movement patterns pointed to infantry. By 4:10, the tactical picture was crystal clear. The convoy was heading straight for a stretch of shoreline about 8 kilometers west of Khersonen, the exact area where Ukrainian forces had reported suspicious activity the week before. The operator reached for a secure phone. Whatever the Russians had planned, they were about to have company they wouldn't see coming. At 4:15, after 27 minutes of patient pursuit, the Ukrainian operator received the 3 words that sealed the landing craft's fate. Cleared to engage. The authorization came from the 383rd Drone Brigade's Operations Center, where senior officers were watching the same live feed. It wasn't an easy call. Each Mammal missile costs $70,000 and the TB2 only carried 4. More importantly, striking here would reveal that Ukraine had drone coverage this deep in the south, risking future operations. But you know, the value of wiping out a landing convoy headed for Khersonen's beaches outweighed the risks. The operator immediately began prepping for the strike. The Cerna was now just 15 kilometers from shore, still holding 30 knots and a steady heading of 330 degrees. In drone warfare, predictable targets are dead targets. He picked the lead ship, hit the main one first to cause maximum confusion. The TB2's autopilot got new orders: break off the patrol path and maneuver into the best firing position. The drone banked left, starting a wide arc that would put it right behind the Russian convoy. This wasn't just about getting in range. The missile was launched along the target's movement axis, minimizing the need for in-flight correction. Through his screen, the drone operator watched the Russian landing craft grow larger. Thanks to the 15 times optical zoom on the Westcam camera, he could now clearly see crew members moving around on deck. Most were gathered near the stern, likely trying to stay out of the wind. Classic mistake. Grouping together just made the missile's job easier. The operator could now make out their gear: tactical vests, helmets, assault rifles. This definitely wasn't a supply run. The missile, known in Turkish as MAM, short for Smart Micro-Munition, was a marvel of miniaturization. Weighing only 22 kilograms, it carried a 10-kilogram warhead, enough to pierce light armor, or in this case rip the top off a boat. It used semi-active laser guidance, meaning the TB2 drone had to keep its laser pointed at the target for the entire flight. At 8 kilometers, it was at the minimum range for an accurate shot. That meant 43 seconds of holding steady. By 4:30, something changed on board the Russian boat. On thermal imaging, the operator saw crew members move to the front of the ship and begin setting up what looked like a heavy machine gun mount. Were they expecting trouble, or was this just standard procedure when approaching a hostile shore? Either way, the operator wasn't waiting to find out. He ran a final system check. Laser locked. Missile status green across the board. Weather conditions were perfect, less than 5 knots of wind at altitude. The only concern was a cloud front moving in from the west, but at current speeds it wouldn't be a factor for at least another hour. He lined up the crosshairs directly on the Cerna's bridge. The laser rangefinder instantly calculated the distance, 12.7 kilometers, and closing. Still too far. Technically, the MAM could hit a target up to 14 kilometers away when dropped from altitude, but accuracy dropped sharply beyond 8 kilometers. He waited. Minutes crawled by. 11 kilometers, 10 kilometers. The Russian boat stayed on course, totally unaware of the silent killer floating 18,000 feet above. The operator now noticed more details. Communication antennas, the hull number, even the individual weapons the troops were carrying. His finger hovered over the trigger. At 4:42, the distance hit 8 kilometers. The engagement range was perfect, but something bothered him. The other 2 boats were still trailing 5 kilometers behind. What were they doing? Reinforcements, supply craft, or something else? Then he saw it. The trailing boats were changing course, one heading north, the other south. They were establishing a perimeter. This wasn't just a landing, it was the beginning of a major operation. The operator knew it was now or never. Whatever the Russians were planning, it ended here. At 04:46, the TB2 operator pulled the trigger on his joystick. But instead of the immediate launch he expected, a warning flashed on screen: laser fault, recalibrating. His heart rate spiked. The Cerna was now just 7 kilometers from shore, slowing down for its final approach. Every second counted. He turned the laser off, then back on. Classic fix. It works for everything from smartphones to million-dollar military gear. The system ran a self-check. 5 seconds, 10. Finally, the laser was back online. He relocked on the target, but something was off. The deck was way too crowded for just 30 regular infantry. And those extra crates strapped to the sides? Definitely not standard equipment. In 43 seconds, they'd find out what was really in them. At 04:47, the missile dropped from the TB2's wing mount. Its fins deployed instantly. The semi-active seeker began scanning for the laser reflection off the target. Inside, a simple onboard computer handled the math altitude, 18,000 feet. Target range, 7.8 kilometers. Time to impact 43 seconds. What the operator didn't know yet was that this landing craft wasn't just part of a beach assault, it was the lead element of something much bigger. And the explosion that was about to happen would reveal a secret the Russians desperately wanted to keep. 28 seconds to impact. The Cerna held its course at 15 knots, completely unaware a missile was dropping from the sky at 250 meters per second. Through the screen, the operator watched the Russian troops on deck, some smoking and joking, others checking gear. They had no idea these were their last moments. The TB2's laser stayed locked on the ship's bridge. Even the tiniest shake could throw the missile off, but the drone's stabilized gimbal held the beam rock steady, like a sniper's scope. The range counter ticked down. 5 kilometers. 4, 3... In exactly 37 seconds, a single explosion would tell Ukrainian intelligence everything they needed to know about Russia's true intentions. 15 seconds to impact. Suddenly, a Russian sailor on deck pointed to the sky. He'd either spotted the drone or the incoming missile. You could see him shouting, waving his arms. But physics doesn't wait. At a closing speed of 185 kilometers per hour, his warning came too late. Thermal imaging showed chaos, Russian troops scrambling across the deck. Some dove behind equipment crates, others tried to return fire, as if rifles could stop a guided missile on final descent. But the operator saw something strange. Several soldiers were tossing crates overboard. Why would they do that instead of trying to save themselves? 5 seconds. The TB2's camera auto-zoomed, capturing every detail in crisp 4K. Ukrainian intelligence officers watching from HQ leaned in. These weren't regular naval infantry. The camouflage pattern was different. The crates had unusual markings. Whatever this mission was, it had just become Ukraine's biggest intel find of the year. Impact. The MAM slammed into the Cerna dead center at 04:48. The blast tore through the hull. Its 10-kilogram warhead, designed to pierce light armor, made quick work of the Cerna's thin steel plates. But at the 1.3-second mark, something else happened. That wasn't fuel exploding, it was specialized demolition charges. Bright white thermite jets lit up the night sky. This wasn't a troop transport, it was a sabotage team. As the craft split in half, the TB2 caught something that made the operator zoom in immediately, waterproof bags floating out of the wreckage, each labelled with Cyrillic letters. Somewhere in Moscow, someone's about to have a very bad morning, knowing they'll probably be defenestrated over what just happened. As burning wreckage fell into the Black Sea, Russian emergency channels lit up, but they weren't coordinating a rescue. The TB2 operator kept his camera trained on the scene. Those weren't secondary explosions from ammunition, they were demolition charges. The team had brought enough thermite to destroy infrastructure. Within 90 seconds, the two trailing ships made sudden turns back toward Crimea. No rescue, no search pattern, just full-speed retreat. That told the whole story. Operational security mattered more than their men. The strategic fallout was instant. Intercepted comms revealed emergency recall orders. Satellite imagery showed the ships returning to Sevastopol. Within a week, all Russian special operations in the western Black Sea had been suspended. 30 Russian operatives trained for months. Their mission ended in seconds. Finally, thanks for listening and sticking with us through this story. If you want to stay updated, make sure to follow S News and check out our future videos. Don't forget to subscribe, like, and leave a comment. We really appreciate